We have everybody. I know it's not quite 4 o'clock yet. Is it, Katie, is it okay to start a minute or two early if everyone's here?
Okay, I know we've got somebody recording. Oh, can we go ahead? Okay.
All right. Well, welcome everybody. Lots of new faces today. I'm Andy Working, Vice Chair of the Transit Committee. Welcome to all of our new members. Congratulations. I think it's probably appropriate to do some extended introductions for the benefit of the new faces. So I guess maybe we can start on the end down here and just work our way across.
Me? Am I the end down here, or are y'all done?
I'll start.
Yep.
Good.
Good afternoon. My name is Alan Coleman, and I have the pleasure of serving as the town clerk. Welcome.
Hi everyone, I'm Shannon Cox and I'm the Long Range Planning Manager. I've been with the town for 8 years and have been a part of the transit program since we started. Looking forward to getting to know you all.
Great. Brett Gant, member of the Town Council, big transit advocate.
Awesome. Wendy Perry, so I'm new to all of this. I'm a good friend and former neighbor of Stewart's. So he kind of got me on board, passed the baton.
Nick Bryant, local business owner and a resident. I have been on the committee since its infancy as well, and glad to be on continuing.
Andy Working, also a local business owner. Been on the committee working with Shannon and team for 7+ years now. So happy to be here.
I'm Patrick Curley. I've lived in Apex for about 25 years. In a previous life, I was a transportation planner, so I had some experience with transit and always had a fascination with it. So that kind of drew me to it. Great.
Welcome. I'm Linda Barrett. I'm a resident here over 20 years, and I work at Wake Med.
Great. I'm Gay Williams. I'm a resident of Apex for going on 12 years and a big advocate of transit, and I'm recently retired from Cisco Systems.
I'm Katie Schwing. I think I've met you all. I'm the transit planner for the town. I've been here for about 2.5 years, and I live here as well, and I'm excited that you're all here.
Hi everyone, I'm Lauren Stoudemire. I'm a planner too with a planning department. I've been with the town since January 2017, so for some of you who have known, I'm Amanda Bunce, the current planning manager, handing me the baton, so I hope to do as good as her. That's my goal. So I look forward to working with every single one of you.
Lauren Sisson, planning tech, been with the town almost 2 years.
Hey, Ashley Gentry, Deputy Town Clerk. I have been with the town for 2 years now, and happy to be here. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, everybody. So second agenda item is to approve minutes from the meeting from the previous meetings. Before we jump into that, just a quick point of order at the request of the folks that have to transcribe the minutes for the meetings. It's been requested that anyone who makes an action, either a motion or something of that sort, to state their name so that it can be properly recorded in the minutes. The second point of order related to this, since we have a lot of new folks on the committee, a lot of you obviously weren't here when these meetings occurred. So Katie was kind enough to do some research on the appropriate way to handle that. And the short of it from the UNC School of Government is that it is wholly appropriate for new committee members to vote to approve or disapprove minutes from previous meetings in which they were not in attendance based on the commentary from the members present who were. So anything to add to that, Katie?
Just that in our rules of procedure, there is a duty to vote. So anyone who does not feel comfortable voting in abstention, their vote will count as the affirmative.
Okay. Anybody clear on that? Any questions or concerns? All right, so two sets of minutes to approve. First is the draft meeting minutes from our regular Transit Committee meeting held July the 10th. Do I have a motion?
Linda Barrett makes a motion to approve the minutes.
Second?
Second, Nick Bryant.
All those that approve, say aye.
Aye.
Any disapprove? All right, motion carries. Second set of minutes to approve are from the Special Transit Advisory Committee meeting held on August the 21st. Do I have a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve. Linda Barrett.
Second, Nick Bryant.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Disapprove? None? All right, motion carries. All right, third agenda item is a request from the town for the Transit Committee to sign a letter of support for the Great Trails state funding request for the Reedy Branch Greenway project. Everyone should have a copy of that letter in front of them. And looks like we have Tyler Gumpright here to give us the lowdown on the project.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for having me. So yeah, we're here to request a letter of support for a grant application that we currently have in process. The grant is seeking design and engineering funds for a portion of the Reedy Branch Greenway. The segment of the Greenway that we're looking to get design and engineering on runs from Kelly Road to Goliath Lane, and it's approximately 1.08 miles in length. We're requesting about $200,000 in funding for the design services on this grant. And we have a number of letters of support already procured. Abington, which is an adjacent subdivision, has given us a letter of support. We have another letter of support from Sweetwater. Olive Chapel Elementary School has written us a letter of support. We have a letter of support from Campo. You know, we're really excited about this opportunity to apply for funding. And given the interests of the committee, we thought it would be appropriate to come before you and just ask for a letter of support. Does anyone have any questions about the grant application?
Hi, Gay Williams. I do have a question.
Sure.
Being a newbie to this committee, it's unclear to me who would we be asking for the money?
Sure.
Funding from?
So the grant application is to the Great Trails State program, which is, it's a state fund where I think $25 million in funding was awarded in the previous, it's in this current fiscal cycle. And the grant application is statewide, and the criteria for applying are, they're fairly broad. Anything that constitutes either a greenway trail or even a blueway trail is permitted to apply. It's open to municipalities and other like state level organizations. And you know, I don't know how many of you were familiar with the Great Trail State program, that the campaign that was run statewide last year, but it was very effective in procuring the funding, and we're here. $25 million statewide isn't a huge amount of money, but we're excited to try to go out and get our piece of it.
Are we limited in the number of times we can ask for funding? I'm assuming there might be other trails around town that we...
At this point, this is kind of like a one-off grant RFP. I think the hope is that this is an annual offering, but you know, at this time, there's no indication that there will be other grant opportunities like this.
Okay.
I think you have a slide to show.
Oh, sure. How do I?
Just forward.
Just.
Yeah.
Okay.
You can skip that.
Yeah, so So here's like a zoomed out extent of where the project is. There you go. That's the portion running from Kelly Road to Goliath Lane. Here's a slightly easier to look at site plan of the proposed project. Again, the project runs from Kelly Road over to Goliath Lane. And the sort of the critical piece of this is that Reedy Branch Greenway is in development, and we have a bunch of greenway on the ground, and the goal is for it to run from Kelly Road out to the American Tobacco Trail. And this would be kind of the last remaining segment. We have a couple of other pieces in the works that are coming in as subdivisions come online. So Smith Farm has already been constructed. There's another piece in Smith Farm running from Richardson Road to a cul-de-sac in Smith Farm that's being, they just broke ground on it. There's another piece that runs through Huxley subdivision. So you can see here we're proposing several access points to the adjacent subdivisions. And for the most part, the HOAs have been on board. Like I said, we have a couple of letters of support, and this alignment that you see here was developed from a 2023 feasibility study that McAdams did. So the alignment certainly isn't final. That the point of going for design and engineering funds is to sort of finalize it and come up with a set of construction documents where the trail can then be constructed, bid and constructed.
Tyler, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I'm new to the committee. I was just wondering how transit ties into this, how closely transit ties into this.
So I have one comment about that, and then feel free, Tyler, after that. So the eastern terminus of the Greenway is in fairly close proximity to a stop on the Go Apex Route 1, which is in front of the 540 Flex on Olive Chapel Road. It serves primarily the food bank. I forget what it's called. The
Western Way Crisis. Okay.
Way Crisis Ministries, and it's also used very commonly for folks going to that Publix shopping center right there.
Sure.
And one other comment about this before I kick it back to you, Tyler. One of the most common points of feedback we've gotten from the public on the transit committee as we're developing and servicing our first circulator route is a request for greenway connectivity to the existing transit route. So it's important to note that our Go Apex Route 1 does not currently serve any of the area that this greenway would be going through. So it does provide some off-street level connectivity to all of those communities into our Go Apex Route 1 that obviously wouldn't be there without this project.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for providing that bit of context. And Katie highlighted the upcoming stops on the map. I don't know if people saw me flip from, if you go.
These are Route 1 stops, is that? Oh, okay.
Yeah, and there is one actually in front of the public shopping center too. Nick just reminded me.
Yeah. Okay. I was just pointing out to Andy that there is one right there at the Greenway, which you just showed. There's one at Publix and then Western Wake. So this letter really just goes on to the Great Trail State funding. You're just looking for us to sign off on it, yes?
Yeah, and you know the letter itself, it's fairly boilerplate. It's just expressing support for the idea that we're seeking this funding. If the committee wants to make any modifications or edits to the letter, we'd be happy to accommodate that.
I mean, if you want to tie in there, if I overlooked it, if you want to tie in there that it would make for great connectivity for the transit, for the Route 1, that would be great.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I'm ready to make a motion.
Thank you.
This is Gay. I'm supportive of it. am curious and have lots of questions, or a couple more questions. One is that, Tyler, you mentioned that you've gotten letters of support from a couple of HOAs. Are there any HOAs who have expressed concern that have been approached, or?
That's a good question. So a couple of the HOAs that we reached out to, they don't quite, like, their boards don't meet regularly, or they haven't had regular board meetings. So in reaching out to, like, the property manager group that works with the HOAs, I wasn't able to get on, like, a board meeting to see if they would approve the request for support.
Okay.
So yes, so in like one or two instances, I had HOAs that I couldn't get on their schedule. And in general, like, what I heard from the property managers is that people, I think there's support for the Greenway existing. There might be some objections by neighbors where access points are immediately adjacent to their property. But these have been on, like, established plans, like the Bike Apex plan that was adopted in 2019. It's part of the Parks Master Plan in 2023. So certainly, like, as part of the design process, we would be receptive to any feedback from the community. But you know, like, we can't hold up applying for these funds till we get unanimous support.
Yeah. My last question: how much are we asking for?
We're requesting $200,000, and the town is proposing to put up matching funds in the amount of $250,000.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions? Do I have a motion?
Motion made, Nick Bryant, in support of the letter for the Greenway.
Do I have a second?
I'll second. Gay Williams, I'll second.
All right, all those that approve, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, next agenda item is Campo Mobility Manager introduction. Katie?
Yeah, I will pass it off to Sarah Williams if you want to come up. We've got slides you can advance just by clicking.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sarah Williams, and I am the Campo Mobility Manager, so the Capital Area Metropolitan Planning Organization. So with Campo, we are the MPO for Wake, Johnston, Chatham, Granville, Harnett, and Franklin counties. I started back in February with this position of Mobility Manager. And it's a brand new position that did not exist before, but it has come about from multiple plans. The first one is, I don't know if you're familiar with 5310 grant funding. It is grant funding that supports seniors, people with disabilities, and low-income individuals who need to be able to get across county lines, taking transit, and getting to medical appointments, things like that. So that is why my position exists, is to kind of bridge those gaps and hopefully get people across those county lines getting to their medical appointments. So starting off, what is mobility management? I kind of explained that a little bit already. But effective mobility management is the coordination between different transit agencies, towns, municipalities, the coordination and cooperation, providing comprehensive and affordable service. So basically trying to make sure that everyone is kind of on the same page. The process of mobility management seeks to identify gaps and barriers to public transportation that prevent individuals from using existing service. So the idea behind it is to essentially become like a one-stop shop of information. So in this plan, there's the mobility management implementation study that came out of the locally coordinated plan that came about in order to get the 5310 grant funding. So the locally coordinated plan specifically works with the different transit agencies, municipalities, and things to try and come up with the different gaps and identify them. And then out of that coordinated plan back in 2018, there was a recommendation to come up with the Mobility Coordination Committee. The Mobility Coordination Committee met together to come up with the Mobility Management Implementation Study, and out of the Mobility Management Implementation Study came the Mobility Manager position. So that's kind of the long short of how I kind of came about into this position. Mobility management is needed here because public transportation options outside of our region's fixed route bus services are limited and more coverage is needed. In the more rural parts of our region, it's difficult to sustain regularly scheduled bus service because of the demand is comparatively low. At the same time, available reservation-based transportation services are not well known, and those that are available are often constrained. And a program that includes more outreach, consolidated information, and better coordination with providers and others can help address these unmet needs. So the vision for the mobility management program, as I said, is to deliver better public transportation service in rural areas, including travel training. So there is a lack of travel training around the region. So that can help riders connect and use transit, make it easier to find out about services, and it will help older adults, people with disabilities, and people with low incomes, agency staff, and advocates. And as it evolves, trip sharing will increase, better technology will be available, and progress will be measurable. So with that, we have started creating a mobility management webpage on the Campo website. It is, about as new as I am, so it is very skin and bones right now. But the ultimate goal for it is to have a database that will tell all of the different transit agency information. There's going to be a system map that will tell you, JCATS, the Johnson County Transit will, this is the pricing for it, this is the boundaries for it, those types of details that people can look on and say, like, okay, I need to get from Johnson County to Wake County or whatever the case. So the goals are, through the mobility management implementation study, there were 3 goals. Engagement, outreach, and coordination. So I have been meeting with all the different transit agencies trying to gain more information about how we can better connect and coordinate with one another in order to get people across these county boundaries. Outreach, I've been going to different human service agencies as well to see what their needs are, to see what it is that what information I can provide to help them get to their medical appointments and things. And then we've been meeting with the Mobility Coordination Committee to try and coordinate these services as well. The second goal is data collection, needs assessment, and program design to better address concerns of people who face mobility challenges. And the third is program evaluation and refinement, promoting and improving coordination with the use of technology among providers. So basically trying to get the different transit system scheduling software to talk to one another so that we're able to get everyone across the county lines. So with that, I'll say that, again, this is a brand new program that's only been around since February. I am in the process of, we are updated our coordinated plan as well, the 2018. We're doing the 2024 coordinated plan that basically just is furthering the information with coordination of what we can do. And I've been going through and looking at the 2018, the 2024 coordinated plan, and then the mobility management implementation study to find common goals and basically try and make the next steps on how to build this program out a little more. So with that, I'll take any questions or comments.
I may have missed, was it Johnson County, Wake County, and Chatham County? Is that, or is there any?
Yeah, Johnson County, Wake County, Chatham County, Franklin County, Harnett County, and Granville County. So 6 counties. Chatham County is the newest one. We just incorporated that one.
Is this because it's focused on disabilities and older people trying to get around town? It's a little bit more comprehensive than, say, going on Google and using the transit selection to get from here to Johnson County. Is that basically what it is?
Yes. So all the different transit agencies have their own like paratransit, non-emergency medical transportation. So there's for Johnson County there's JCATS. For there's HARTS for Harnett County, CARTS for the Kerr area. And then there's Go Wake Access here in Wake County. So there's different paratransit that you have to go in and schedule these rides for. That you can't, it takes a little bit more than, like you said, just Googling and being able to do it. Like you have to, some of these rides are, you have to pay a fee in order to do it, or they're ADA related as well. So there's just a lot more to it than that. So that's why it is so much more comprehensive.
Wendy Perry, hey. I just really appreciate what you're doing, and I can only imagine. I'm very new to all of this. My daughter is legally blind and hearing impaired, and this is how she gets around, gets to her job. She lives in Apex pretty much because of the transportation. Mm-hmm. So is there an outline of, what each county offers somewhere? Or is that something you're working on as far as the different modes of transportation? Because I myself get a little confused.
Yes, it is a little tedious. So that is the goal of what I am doing right now, is compiling all that information for it to be a one-stop shop. Each transit agency does have it on their website. But again, because there are so many hard and fast boundary lines, a lot of them don't go back and forth and around. So yes, having it all in one place on the Campo website that can also be shared with the different transit agencies as well, to put on their website, so that you can look at one document, preferably one document or database or something that will tell you exactly what each county offers. So that is what we're working on right now. We'll see when it gets finished. I mean, it'll ultimately be a forever changing document. Mm-hmm. But we're working with different volunteer driver services as well. So the Center for Community Care, or Center for Volunteer Caregiving, those people that will pick up seniors or people with disabilities to take them to their medical appointments or to go shopping. It's not necessarily just for medical appointments. It's also so that these communities can live.
Sir, thank you for your presentation. One thing I was thinking about you didn't mention was a lot of people from Apex have medical appointments in Duke Hospital or the VA in Durham or UNC Hospital, and so I hope there's some collaboration with the Durham Chapel Hill MPO as well.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we are. They do not currently have a mobility management program, but we are definitely working with DCHC or the Durham Chapel Hill Carborough MPO to try and build that out. So because you're right, there are plenty of people that need to go into that part of North Carolina in order to get to these doctor's appointments.
Thanks.
Hey, so I'm so excited about your presentation. I think it's fantastic because I do work in healthcare, and when we've had some meetings about the door-to-door service, we ran into, when we're hearing about it, about, oh, you can go this far, but if you live in Cary, and if you live in, so we realize those barriers. So just a couple comments. Right now, Wake County is working on the Community Health Needs Assessment, and access to health care is one of the top 3 priorities from the 2022 assessment. In 2019, transportation was on there too, and I think there's been so many strides with transportation. It's weaved in, but access to health care comes in every time. So appreciate this because it's so needed, and there's lots of healthcare resources that can help as well. So if there's opportunities to pull in lots of all 3 hospitals and folks, there's lots of resources out there, and we can help you get the word out, because when we had some meetings, our staff, our healthcare providers didn't know all the resources that are available. So I think there's a lot of opportunity for that. So thank you for the work that you're doing. It's much needed for our county.
Thank you, I appreciate that. And we are working with Live Well Wake.
Yeah.
So I am a part of that currently. So yes, it has been, I appreciate any sort of input, feedback, connections, anything that you can possibly give for me to be able to go out and promote this program and build it up. So.
I probably should have mentioned some of this at the beginning. So Sarah's building this program from scratch, basically. So it's a big undertaking. We're very excited that she's on board with Campo. I do serve on the mobility coordination committee that she mentioned. So we've been kind of waiting for this for a while, and know that there's a lot of tasks ahead of us. This is just the start of this program. And by mobility management, with transit, we have multiple goals for transit. There's a travel demand management kind of side of things to provide efficient ways of getting people around, but there's also the mobility side of it, which is providing access for folks who might not have had another way to get somewhere. And so she's really focused on that side of it, and it's really needed in our region. So just a couple comments there.
Any other questions, comments? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
All right, next item, looks like Alan is up to talk about the chair and vice chair nomination process.
Ashley's going to lead you through.
Oh, all right.
I'm here for support if needed.
I'm back. Hello, everyone, again. Give me 1 second. I'm going to get this to you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. So today I am here to for you guys to discuss the nominations for chair and vice chair. So currently we do not have a chair at this moment. The chair, who was Stewart, resigned, and so now we did fill his position, but the term or the chair did not go with the position. So we will be doing nominations today for a new chair and a new vice chair. So typically how it works is it is an open discussion within the board committee. You can feel free to nominate who you choose. If there's more than one nomination, we can go to a ballot system. But again, I would start out with the nominations, who you feel like you would want as your chair for the next year. And these are 1-year commitments, up to 4 years for chair and vice chair. So you may serve in that role for up to 4 years. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and turn it to you for open discussion on if anybody wants to nominate someone for chair. We'll start with chair.
I'm curious if there's any interest in chair before we start nominating.
That's my question. If
Yeah.
anybody wants to nominate themselves, I think that would be.
Open discussion.
Yeah. And can I just ask for a point of clarification? By this year, I think you mean, is it through July? Is that the end of the year? Is that because I know you had your
So
chair
it
just
would be,
finished up in August. I think
It would be the
special
end
August.
of what's this month? October. It would be for the end of October. So it would be end of September.
So that seems off your year, though.
I thought this was discussed at the special meeting, Alan. And I'm looking in the minutes, I don't see it yet, but I'm sure it's here somewhere. Do you?
Yeah, so the leadership positions normally align with the terms, and so if your terms are July to June, then your leadership positions would be July to June. The only board, and actually I think they're July to June.
They are July to June.
Like, for example, our housing board is in October, so like what Ashley's referencing, their terms would be October 1 through September 30th.
Got it.
And they're 1-year terms.
Sorry about that.
So it depends
that's
on when the
okay.
terms are reset.
I just
So,
want to clarify for whoever's nominating yourself,
yes.
which won't be me. So
Yeah, so this would be, of course, contingent upon council approval and the mayor's recommendation. But then it would be through June 30th of 2025.
Okay. Because that's what Stewart's term,
Yes.
chair term was, through 2025. Okay.
Everybody's looking at.
in the middle of the table, man.
Sandra, you're doing a great job today.
I think that for the sake of continuity, especially given the large amount of new faces we have on the committee, it's probably important that we stick with some folks that have been here a while and know the history,
know the flow.
So I'd be willing to serve as chair.
Fantastic. I
Great.
nominate Andy.
Thanks.
Curly, I
Does
second.
that need a second?
Yes.
So, yes.
Okay, Gay Williams, I second.
All right. Anyone interested in vice chair, Nick?
All in favor for Andy? Oh, wait. Did we do, yeah, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. All right, vice chair. Open discussion.
Linda, Nick.
Willing? Unless you
between
really want it,
Linda and
Linda,
Nick.
or anybody for that
Nick,
matter. But otherwise, I'm happy to.
Okay,
Yes.
that'd be great. I nominate Nick Bryant for vice chair.
I'll second that. Andy Working.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
Thank you for doing it.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Now, this is going to go on to the next agenda for council approval. So the way this works is the mayor, it is approved by the mayor and what is it? I'm sorry, I'm getting confused. Appointed by the mayor and confirmed by council. So that's how the chair and vice chair nominations work. And then we'll, once it gets approved, or if it gets approved by council, I will send you guys an email, or Katie will, one of us stating what, if it passed or not. Okay?
Great.
Okay.
Thank you.
That's it.
Thank you
Thank
both.
you.
Thank you. Easy enough.
All right. We're a little ahead of schedule, which is good. All right, Katie, it looks like you're up with the transit prioritization study updates.
Great, thank you. I'm gonna advance our slides here. I am glad we have a few more minutes for this because I only gave it 10 minutes on our agenda, and I think we probably need a little bit more. I did want to give an update on the transit priority prioritization study that we're working on.
Can we get just a quick, from 10,000 feet, what that is for the new folks?
Yeah, so this first slide kind of gives the high level bullet points of what the study is. It's really meant to help guide and identify what the next step for transit improvement or expansion is in town. When I guess I can give like just a really brief history of how we got to Go Apex Route 1. So there was a town transportation plan update in 2019 called Advance Apex. And it basically identified the circulator service that went on to become Go Apex Route 1 as the top priority for, transit expansion or improvement in town. It also laid out a transit plan map, which I think you're all familiar with. And the transit plan map identifies potential other routing options and things like that, but there was not really an order of priority of what the town should do. So there was a circulator study that was done to kind of finalize the actual service launch of Go Apex Route 1, and now we just have kind of this nebulous idea of, we need to think of what we would do next after Go Apex Route 1. So that's the point of this study. So the outcome is that it could inform transit plan map amendments. It could recommend further planning projects. It could inform funding requests or something else. And it's an internally managed project, so that means it's being done by staff. We don't have a consultant on board for it, but we did receive a grant through the Wake Transit Community Funding Area Program, which is administered by Campo, that is supporting certain aspects of the project. So costs related to the onboard survey that we administered this past May, which actually included, a person who rode the bus and asked people to fill out the survey. It helped us develop it. It allows us to have access to the Remix transit planning software, which is a subscription-based software, as well as helped give reimbursement for outreach materials that we spent money on as part of the project. So it's not meant to be a full transit plan for the town. It's really meant to kind of get at what we do in the very near term. So like the next couple of years, not like a long-term vision for transit. And we do have a project webpage that will be updated as we move through the project, and that is this link here. It's at publicinput.com/transit study, and you can also access it from the Go Apex page on the town's website if you look for the transit prioritization study. So it has been slow going, so that's most of my update today. There's the 4 main tasks associated with this. One is just to kind of get a literature review, almost get us up to speed on where we are with the current state of transit planning in town and in our region. Second task is analysis of projects and identification of gaps in order to determine where transit might be most needed or wanted. I've got a couple of bullet points under here to kind of drive down a little bit deeper into what that task involves. So it's been evolving a little bit over the past few months. Where I think this is ending up is trying to use the feedback we've received from the public, from the onboard and online surveys that we conducted this spring, as well as some analysis to identify certain focus areas as a way to measure where we want to provide access to, so sort of like a key destinations, map out different scenarios or routing options to help reach those focus areas, and then compare these different options for
the population covered, how many focus areas are covered, what the cost is to do so, and a few other factors. We also have public input as part of this project. We developed an online survey and an onboard survey that we administered this spring. Those results are now posted on the project webpage. And I believe you all have seen the results at previous meetings, but they're now finalized and available for everyone to see. And basically using all of those top 3 tasks to develop recommendations in task 4, which we have not gotten to yet. So the update here is basically we were originally trying to do this as an FY24 project. Due to staff constraints, mainly me, we're still in the process of doing that. I have been talking with Shannon about revising our timeline and how to get it done in time, and we are got a plan going forward, and we're very excited that we're getting a new staff member. We have Long Range Planner 2 starting on October 28th, who is gonna be great and gonna devote a substantial fraction of her time to transit. So we're looking forward to that, and really trying to bring it home for FY25, which we're already in right now. And then that would mean we would be able to complete it in time for our FY27 budget, CIP, and funding application timelines. So that's really the update on the timeline. I just did want to remind everyone that we are already currently working to make one improvement to the service, to add Sunday service to Go Apex. We've gotten approval from last year's grant application to implement it in FY25, but we are still working through our service agreements with our transit providers. We were originally hoping that we could get it done as early as Q2, which is October 1st, but we don't have the agreements in place, mainly for reasons outside of our control. And we're still actively working to see if we can get it implemented for this spring, hopefully for the spring service change that Go Carry usually does, which is typically in April. So that's what we're aiming for right now. And with that, we also have to, implement the door-to-door service on Sundays as well to keep it in line with the fixed route service. Okay.
Can I interrupt?
Yes.
Does Carrie already man that the door-to-door service line on Sundays already?
So we contract with Go Wake Access to.
Oh, it's through Go Wake. That's right.
Yeah, to do the door-to-door service, and we've been talking with them about the expansion. They contract with a private service provider called RATP Dev. That's the name of the company. RATP Dev operates multiple programs, not just the Go Apex door-to-door service. And so they've confirmed that they are in operation already for the hours that we would want them to be available for the Go Apex door-to-door service on Sundays. But we have not signed an agreement through Go Wake Access yet to be able to access that.
Okay.
And I wanted to float something by you guys as part of this. So this project timeline has been longer than we originally anticipated. And it's not going to be done before our next community funding area program application window, which is the community funding area program is the Wake Transit program, grant program for municipalities outside of Cary and Raleigh, where we get our funding for Go Apex Route 1 and the other capital projects we've received for bus stop improvements and things like that. So that's a 50% match. We could pursue a FY26 grant application, even if we're not complete with our transit prioritization study, and we're kind of knocking ideas back and forth right now about that. One idea that we wanted to run by you is if we might consider increasing frequency on Go Apex Route 1 to 30-minute service for FY26. We were thinking that this was probably the most feasible option given the timeline that we have, because it wouldn't require new capital costs, and it wouldn't require a change to the Go Apex door-to-door service area. It would basically be adding another bus to the route to have 2 buses circulating instead of 1, making it a 30-minute headway instead of an hour headway. There is a cost to this. I just did a kind of napkin calculation that it would be probably around another $672,000 over the hourly service model. And we're in discussions about feasibility with Go Cary, because as they're our fixed route service provider, we rely on them to really have the vehicles available and staffing available to provide the service, which can take some lead time on. They've explained to us that they really don't have any extra vehicles available right now and would likely have to purchase another one through their contracted service provider in order to even do this at this point. So we're still not quite sure if that's doable within the 1-year time frame.
How does the cost for the 30-minute frequency compare to expanding Route 1 or adding a Route 2?
Yeah, that's a great question. So there's a bunch of different things that are included in the costs that some are one-time costs that are more administrative, and it doesn't matter how many routes you have, they're the same. And then there are some costs that would be increased, mostly the door-to-door service area and the bus stops and infrastructure that would be involved with changing the routing itself over just adding additional service to an existing route. Our bus stop installation project for Go Apex Route 1, which really gave us kind of bare bones ADA accessible stops, was about $500,000, I think. And then we pursued funding to make additional bus stop improvements since that first project. So $500,000+ to add another
Just fixed
route.
startup, not counting the operating costs.
Yeah, just to add the bus stops, if it's a similar number of stops to Go Apex Route 1. The door-to-door service area is a little bit harder to calculate without knowing the exact routing, because it kind of depends on what destinations are covered by the service area, how many people are covered, how much bigger the service area would end up being, because there might be some overlaps with the existing service area. And
just a refresher, the door-to-door, we're required to provide door-to-door for, is it 1 mile on either side of the fixed route, or what is the?
So the bubble is 3/4 of a mile outside the fixed route.
On either side, or just total?
On either side, yeah.
So 1.5 miles.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's kind of hard to wager how much those costs would increase. We know they would increase over the current service area, but yeah.
I'm trying to figure out how to phrase my question. Probably because I'm reluctant to add a 30-minute service. I can't imagine that that would increase ridership. I know it's an hour circulator, but no one's riding from one spot to the same spot for an hour. You know what I'm saying? You're not leaving the same spot and then coming back to the same spot. So generally speaking, you're only let's say you're only going for a 30-minute ride. I don't know. I'm trying to figure out maybe what the angle might be on. Is it just to appease and try and expand the program the way you're looking at it, Katie? Or that's what I want to know. Like, what's the angle?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So I would say the main angles we're kind of looking at right now is, one, making sure we don't miss an opportunity if we do want to put in a grant application this year, that we have something. This would be it, basically, that we could really pursue in terms of operating project expansions within this time frame. We could always wait until next year if we want to kind of evaluate this further as we finish up the prioritization study. We also, I guess from an operations perspective, having 2 buses on a route helps with reliability, in terms of if there is an issue with a bus being late or breaking down or whatever, there's another bus on the route that can serve passengers. So this spring,
knock on wood, we're still running at 90% at least.
well, so we have been great, but in the past few months, we have experienced some situations where the bus has broken down. And this is related to the vehicle constraints that I mentioned that GoCarry is currently having, where if the bus breaks down, you basically instantly miss a trip, because it takes time for them to send one over from Cary to pick up from where the other one is left off. And so this is a reliability factor. It's an expensive reliability factor.
It's a really expensive reliability factor, because this is something that we discussed a long time ago, was, what responsibility does Cary have to running the route? Physically, they're not responsible for anything, for the most part. But yet we want to add another circulator to the same route that we're already running, and we're really striving to increase ridership. Maybe I'm contradicting myself. I don't know, but yeah.
I think those are good points, and I share some of those concerns. I'd also add that as a relatively new service, our cost per boarding is still pretty high. It's trending down as our ridership increases, which is good, but maybe I'm jumping forward in the agenda a little bit, Katie, but I'm sure you would cover what our current cost per rider or cost per boarding is. So effectively moving to a 30-minute frequency would effectively double our cost per boarding, at least initially.
Unless we double the ridership.
Unless you get more
Right,
riders.
unless you get more riders,
Right.
Without
because you have
getting
more
more riders,
frequency.
yeah.
Yeah.
And that's a concern. And there's a fine line I think we need to walk in terms of working not only for additional riders and enhanced services, but public acceptance of continuing this service in the long run. And the optics of seeing empty buses driving around, or perceiving empty buses, even though they might not be fully empty, it is probably one of the biggest threats to continued public support for the service. So I wouldn't want us to do a disservice to ourselves by doubling the frequency without additional ridership to support it. And just speaking just for me, not for everyone else, I don't feel personally like our ridership is to a point where that wouldn't be an issue.
Was there anything in the onboard surveys that people were requesting or desiring increased service that way? 30-minute headways or?
Yeah, so I did paste some of the results in here to take a look at too. No, that's you were thinking right on the right track. So I did paste results from this is the onboard survey that is primarily our regular riders of the service, and for the question on which aspect of service is most important to improve, weekend service is the number one that we're currently working on adding Sunday service.
Love that.
Yeah, so we're excited about getting that going. And then it was availability of shelters or seats at bus stops, which we're slowly working through. Buses running on time, and then frequency of service was number 4. And then on the customer satisfaction, how satisfied are you with the following factors? Frequency of service is down towards the bottom, and it had one of the lower levels that people reported total satisfaction with, but a lot of people also reported fairly satisfied with. So there weren't very many people who were very dissatisfied with the frequency of service. So there's, that to consider. And then I didn't make this pretty, but I wanted to throw in the results from the online survey that asked people what they were most, what they most wanted to see in terms of expansion, and frequency was one of them. And it was the number 2 item as in terms of people's first choice, below add a new local bus route.
I have a comment, and I'm new to all this, and I had read the survey responses and listened to your last couple of meetings you all had just to try to catch up a little bit. But I'll just share anecdotally, I didn't take the bus here because I would have had to wait half an hour to take it. I was able to walk, but a 15-20 minute walk would have turned into 5 minutes if I could hop on the bus and come. That's one resident, it's not many. But I think there are many times, at least I don't take it because of it hits the closest stop at 10 minutes after the hour, which is a weird time for me if you're trying to get to somewhere at the top of the hour. So I just think it would provide a lot more flexibility. You guys have been doing this a lot longer, obviously, than I have. I'm just been a user, a potential user of the service. But for me, frequency does to some degree equate to usability. So, and I think that may be reflected in results. It's always difficult with surveys to get into the brain of somebody, of the respondents, and see why did they answer the way they did. I get your concerns, and you've got a lot more experience with this than I do, but I do think there's probably something to people knowing, okay, if it's going to be there every half hour, I can time it a little better. If I got to wait an hour, I'll drive. If that's a possibility.
So I had a couple thoughts. Thank you for that. Just thinking about how this could work the best, and I think the most logical way to expand, if we had all the staffing and money and everything, would be to go to 30 minutes and increase the routes however it would be at the same time.
Right.
But then there would be the cross-pollination of the routes that you would want the higher frequency. Maybe there should be not really consideration with this committee, but there's going to be a town council election next year, and the cost per ridership is going to be mentioned. Yeah. And if I was a betting man, I would say you'll get 1.5 times more riders for double the cost if you go to 30 minutes. So, excuse me. So the amount of riders, the cost will go up, 25%. 50%, I get. No, 25%, I think, cost per rider if the frequency goes up like that, if I'm right.
So you would
you would forecast at $30 per rider now?
Goes to 40.
Huh?
It'd be 40 if we double the frequency, is my guess.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I'm just.
You heard
That's
it
if
here
we added
first.
50% ridership.
Yes.
With the increase.
I just don't think we'll double it without another route and kind of that cross pollination.
I think you're right. I think we'd be looking at significantly higher cost per boarding than we're looking at now. I go back to just thinking about the increase in potential ridership you would have by adding another route as opposed to this. And yeah, there's significant fixed initial cost and time and resource in building the infrastructure, the bus stops, all of that. But you're servicing entirely new areas of this community that aren't serviced at all right now. I'd hate to forego a potential funding opportunity, but I don't know that
that funding opportunity can't be used for improvements, can it?
It can. There's the same program, it's the same funding pot where you can apply for capital and operating funding. So we could.
Is that an option?
We actually, I'm going to go forward a couple slides. So what we were thinking is we could continue for FY26 the pattern that we've had, and which is also already in our CIP, just to go for another round of bus stop improvements for Go Apex Route 1 as it exists today. But in terms of capital projects, I think we'd have to think through a bit more in order to develop an accurate cost estimate if we want to expand service. We'd have to have more information ready in order to get grant funding in this cycle than I think we're ready for. Like, are you thinking like a new, like making bus stops for a new route?
No, I was.
Oh, okay.
Improving the bus stops that we have now.
Okay.
Well, both things are possible, right? In theory, if we pick a new route, or we know it's going to be a route in the future.
Oh, I see.
I mean, one of the slides said this all had to be submitted by the end of this coming January. So you're looking at 3 months.
Mm-hmm.
Is that even feasible? I mean, we haven't even discussed what another route would look like.
That was my question, is have you even talked about a route 2 or?
Yeah, so that's really what's going to be coming out of the prioritization study, which is not complete. So that's why this if we want to kind of hold out for a route 2, it's really going to be next year's application cycle, not this year's application cycle.
And one other question, building on what Brett suggested, which was introducing a route 2 and increasing frequency. That seems like it would be a massive funding request. Is that even within the realm of feasibility, or is that something we should not consider as an option?
That's a great question. So and it kind of ties into the next item we have on our agenda for the Wake Transit Plan update. If you want, I can wait until that item to kind of go over, but I would say there's potentially an opportunity for increased funding in the CFA program starting in FY27.
I think that answer's good for now.
And this isn't an action item, so we were just looking for feedback. So if you, I've been taking notes. We'll continue to discuss over the next couple of months. If you have any other feedback, you can send it to me via email too.
So just a question, because I'm getting up to speed here. So it sounds like the idea would be, and it makes sense to me, that if we could have a route 2 or even a route 3 and a route 4 all of a sudden in 30-minute stops, then the thought is initially, of course, our cost per boarding would go way up, but that ridership would increase more if we could have expanded access plus more frequent stops. Is that generally accepted truth?
Yeah, I think that's the expectation, yeah.
And also, there's no way to increase the footprint of Route 1 and at a bus because it's at its max for making those times the way it is. It's already maxed
But
out.
without adding a bus, you
With-
can't increase Route 1. Is that
Like, even if we did add a bus to Route 1, we can't increase its footprint because it won't make time.
because it takes an hour
Yeah.
to get around?
Katie, have you thought about other operational improvements to Route 1, like going to 11 p.m. in addition to the Sunday thing?
We haven't fleshed out anything else yet. We could consider that, expanding our span if we wanted to. That would not require an extra vehicle. It would just be more hourly cost, which is pretty simple.
Yeah, it was in the survey, I think, both maybe
Yeah,
who work
span.
at the restaurants and people who are going to restaurants, like in
So-
downtown Apex.
And more riders make all of these discussions way easier.
Right.
Right. Yeah,
So
because your
is,
cost per boarding goes down.
yeah, and so is there a way to request some funding for outreach to increase ridership? You know, that if we can get the cost per boarding down by increasing our ridership, then you know, all of these discussions and decisions become a lot easier.
Can I offer a couple things? So, Alicia, who will be our new long-range planner, one of her focus areas will be outreach. And so we do expect, more outreach opportunities, especially for transit in the upcoming future. For just a couple of thoughts listening to your conversation. So Go Apex Route 1 is not our only transit route. Route 305 did recently expand. So thinking about, routes complementing each other, Route 305 did expand their
It's all day.
frequency. Yeah.
All day service.
Yeah.
Is it every hour?
Hourly, right? Yeah. And then what's called the Go Apex Cary Express, it'll be Go Cary Route 12 is also soon to increase their frequency. So we do have some complementary service expansions, even though it's not a Go Apex Route 2. So that's one thing to think about. I just suggest that Katie and I kind of continue to look into this, talk to Town of Cary about what timing would work for them. It may be that they couldn't even implement it until kind of halfway through the year. Prepare some more detailed cost estimates, kind of working toward an application in the January timeframe, but bring that back to the group at your January meeting. And if the group feels like, no, this really isn't something that we think, it's a right timing right now, then we could consider tabling that. But we'd still have information for a future application.
Is there a thing where if you get funding one year, you get less the next year, or you're less likely to get, like, if we wanted to get the big one in 2 years, are we less likely if we do this year?
I mean, there is part of the formula that counts how long it's been since your last, grant award. That factor probably won't affect us too much, but there is the 30% operating cap that's in place until our CFA program is updated. We don't know if that cap will still be in place or not, but that kind of gets tied to for those who aren't familiar, we basically can't take more than 30% of the total program funding pot. because they're trying to make sure that there's funding available for other towns as well. So we're still under that rule, and we can likely do like this, the like 600,000, level of project next year without breaking that 30% rule, but there's also no guarantee that with the limited funding that is available that somebody else or multiple other agencies won't be applying as well, which makes it more competitive for us with the limited funding.
What is the total? Like, what's the 30% cap?
I calculated it last year. It ended up being like 850,000 or something like that, and I think it's slightly more this year because the fund balance rolls over. The unused funds roll over from year to year, so we have a little bit more this year. And I believe some is coming back. Actually, I'm going a little off topic here, but Wake Forest decided to change their service model, and so they are moving from a fixed route service to a microtransit service. We've learned recently, and so they're going to be giving back the remainder of their CFA funding for this coming year into the pot again. So there's going to be a little bit more in the fund balance for us to compete for.
You bring up Wake Forest. I already had a question about them, but do you know why? First off, do you know why they're changing their route? And additionally, we were on trend and we were doing well for keeping our cost per boarding low, and we were on the trend of being very low. Are we still trending there, or are we now established, like the funding after whatever it was, a year or 2 years of us being established, that because we're a new program, they allowed more. So
yeah.
Are we still trending down, or are we in a good place per boarding at $30? I'm using that roughly. I think I remember $28.
Yeah, I think we had just gone under 30 for the first time.
Yeah. So
last meeting.
So with the recent data that we've gotten for this summer, it's kind of plateaued.
Okay.
Which we're keeping an eye on and are going to be following up with Go Carry On to see if we can get more information from them. Our on time has gone down from the top peaks that we've seen in the past, and I'm wondering if it's partly to do with some of the vehicle issues that we were seeing.
Vehicle issues, or even the moving of the bus stops, did that affect it at all during, I mean, the past 2 months we've had a festival here every other weekend, so I don't know.
Yeah, so they were having issues with the software that analyzes their APC data, and they've gotten a new software, so they don't. I've requested that data, but they have it, but they can't get it to me yet. So I'm hoping to get that in the next few weeks in order to be able to figure out what's going on. APCs is the automated people counters on the bus.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You saw the dazed look in my face. And then the other question was, do you know why Wake Forest changed?
So we were in a meeting with their planner this summer. When did we meet?
I don't have a good sense of time.
It was in August. Basically, they didn't feel it was performing well enough. Okay. So they were seeing probably more 2 to 3 people per service hour.
Wow.
Which is below what we're seeing.
Yes.
And they just decided it wasn't worth it at that point.
And what is the micro transit model that they moved to?
It's being, I think it's being operated by Go Raleigh. And Go Raleigh has a big contract. I think it's with VIA, who also operates some microtransit services in other areas in North Carolina. It's just an app-based service like the Morrisville Smart Shuttle, where you request a trip except I believe the Wake Forest one is not a node-based one, so it'll pick you up at your address and take you to a destination address. Don't quote me on that. I haven't seen the
Is it
details.
like an
yet.
app-based thing, kind of like, almost like an Uber?
Yeah, pretty much, yeah. So the thing about those microtransit services is you have a very limited capacity. So if you know your demand is always going to be low, you can offer higher convenience to those fewer customers at the same price. But if your demand is high, the quality of service decreases significantly. So it's really a trade-off, and you have to kind of be certain about what kind of service you want to offer and how many people will use it. Yeah.
Okay.
We may have exhausted discussion on the topic. So I did want to move on, if it's okay, to item 7. Okay, so I did want to share updates on the Wake Transit Plan that's being updated right now, and this is the county-wide transportation plan that outlines the goals and the strategies for projects that are funded through the half-cent sales tax that we all pay in Wake County, as well as a few other revenue sources that go towards improving our county-wide transit system. There is a project webpage for this project update as well. It's at publicinput.com/Wake Transit 2035, and you can also receive updates directly by signing up your email address at their website. There are 4 main goals for the Wake Transit Plan. They call them the big moves. They are to better connect us regionally, so major regional transit project initiatives, to connect all the Wake County communities, that includes Apex, to create frequent, reliable urban mobility, which mostly means Cary and Raleigh, and to enhance access to transit, which includes the CFA program, as well as programs to build out bus stops and transfer points and things like that. Where we are in the project update is basically the project team has drafted a state of the plan that's available on the project website, which is kind of what the program has done to date. Set kind of updated goals, priorities, and started exploring where we want to go. And now is in the process of developing 3 different scenarios that will be released to the public in November and December for feedback. And these scenarios are basically, what do we want to do with the money that we'll have available through 2035? And there was a public survey that went out just after our Go Apex public survey went out this spring, asking riders and the general public what they wanted to see in terms of these major updates. This graph shows the results of the survey, which basically asks you to spend money on a variety of transit improvements, and the more expensive ones cost more money and the less expensive ones cost less money, and these are what people selected. So they used this feedback, and I'm not going to go into detail about the actual results. They're available online as well as in your slides, but these were used to kind of set possible scenarios for further public review. And these are still draft, so they could change. I think I have a little bubble here, but I wanted to give you kind of a heads up so you knew what we were going into this fall. So the 3 scenarios as they are today, which could change, are basically scenario A, prioritize the Greater Triangle Commuter Rail project that has been in planning stages for many years and was part of the original Wake Transit Plan goal to connect regionally. This is the project that you probably have heard in the news is increasingly expensive and likely difficult to implement. And basically in scenario A, they've outlined how much it will cost, which is very expensive, $4.6 billion, which is actually over the amount of funding we have available in the program, and so would likely kind of steal from the future and or not be completed within the 10-year time frame for this plan update. And the funding would be heavily focused towards this one project. Basically, the projects that are already programmed out will be able to continue, but there would be no new projects in this 10-year time period. And there would be no new funding available for the community funding area program that we receive our 50% grant match through. And then there's also they've kind of fashioned it as the status quo scenario based on what the previous plan wanted to accomplish. But there's a lot of costs associated with this scenario. And then there are these two other scenarios that are much more cognizant of the funding that we have available, and so they do not include the Greater Triangle Commuter Rail project. That project's kind of being scrapped, and in both scenarios it's basically replaced with a BRT project, so bus rapid transit project that would kind of serve the same function to connect people from Durham to RTP to downtown Raleigh, and also hit the airport. So basically wouldn't necessarily go through the terminal drop off of the airport, but would have like a transfer hub near 40 in the airport in order to connect people to shuttles and things like that and get them to downtown Raleigh. Option B, prioritize countywide connectivity, provides a lot more funding towards what you would think of coverage-based services, so more services out to the different towns instead of focusing transit in downtown Raleigh, downtown Cary areas. It would increase funding for the community funding area program to $40 million over the 10-year time frame instead of $20 million in the status quo scenario, so basically doubling the budget available. And would just place more focus on sort of regional bus routes that connect between different towns, so people don't have to go to downtown Raleigh from Apex to get to Holly Springs. It's more of sort of filling out the circle of the spider web. Then scenario C is really more focusing on the urban areas and providing more frequent bus service where transit is already the most heavily used. And would also, this scenario would still increase the CFA funding program, but it would not provide as many other sort of regional routes connecting the different towns. I'm kind of glossing over a lot of the other details, but you can read it on your own, and I just wanted to highlight some of the things that would affect us. In priority, or in scenario B, they've also included budget for 9 mobility hubs to spread around the region, which are, multimodal centers that would facilitate transfers between different bus routes, as well as, bicycling, pedestrian, rideshare programs, possibly passenger rail stations. Kind of depends on where they are placed, but it would provide funding to just outright pay for those. We would not have to pay a 50% CFA program match, for example. And then in scenario C, there would be funding for about 5 of these mobility hubs. So Apex would be less likely to receive the funding, but we still probably could receive funding for those. So those would be in scenarios B and C, but not A. And in both B and C, we get additional CFA program funding. And those are the updates I have right now for the Lake Transit Plan. So there will be outreach. We are probably going to have 1 or 2 in-person pop-up events in town. We're working with the Campo team to figure out when and where those might be, and those will be posted on our news page when we know what those are. But there will also be a survey out online that you will be able to take and provide feedback on the scenarios.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And then we had an attachment to your email that had the informational updates, and I wasn't planning to present on any of those, but if anyone has questions.
I just had one question somewhat related to this. For the benefit of the new members, do they have our route maps for 305, for Route 1? I see.
Yeah, we have.
Okay, you do have this. Okay, great. Yeah, I just make sure.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, we had a brief orientation session for everyone. Couldn't go over everything transit related, but just to kind of give an overview of, you know, the ride guides that we had and things like that. So, yeah. So,
Next meeting, Wednesday, January the 8th. It's a long way out. Check your calendars.
I have a question before if we're getting close to adjourning.
Sure.
Given that the formal committee are 6 members and there are 3 of us who are new and we only meet every 3 months, it seemed like it's going to be difficult for us to kind of, other than reading lots of material, which of course I know we're doing, to sort of learn from those of you who have been around for a long time and you've invested a lot of yourselves in getting where we are now. And confess, I'm a career-long HR person, so I think a lot about the people dynamics, and for us to really get to know each other a little bit better if we're only getting together every 3 months. I know we have to be careful about having business discussions, but is there some kind of, that are not public, but is there some opportunity for us to either get together on the record, just in a little bit more casual environment, and kind of catch up with what you all have seen as priorities and where you've had challenges and where the committee's made a difference, that sort of thing, or catch up off the record over dinner or a glass of wine or something and not talk about business. I just thoughts of.
That's a good point, and you know, there's years and years of history and the discussions and decisions that led to where we are right now in terms of the services and routes and all that kind of thing. So, you know, it's impossible to really cover that in a meeting like this. I know we're constrained in terms of, you know, when we have a formal meeting like this, a regularly scheduled meeting, we have to stick to the agenda, and then when we have a special meeting, we have to have a specific purpose for that, and we can only discuss the things related to that purpose as outlined in that particular agenda, so it's very rigid. So I guess that the question would go to you, Katie and Shannon, like, what are our options there?
Or me.
Or Alan, yes.
So yes, as you described, you know, it's really tricky because if you have a quorum, so which is a majority of the voting members together, that constitutes a public meeting. So that's where I would caution you on meeting in large groups. You know, there's nothing that would prevent you or any of the new members who wanted to learn more, you know, meeting with a member who's been a part of the committee for, you know, any length of time, right? Like, so if you, Ms. Williams, wanted to meet with the chair, there's nothing that would prevent
As
that.
long as there are no more than 3 voting members at a
Correct.
time, okay.
Correct. So those are the things that you have to watch for. On the special meeting notice, it's a little bit more rigid in terms of only the topics that are included in the notice can be discussed for a special meeting. For a regular meeting, there's a little bit more flexibility in adding agenda items, or at least having those discussions like we're doing this. It's a little more flexibility in a regular meeting as long as we know ahead of time. So I would just recommend that either set up some time with staff if that's available, or if staff has that time. If you have specific questions, then maybe send those in advance, and then set up some time. Say, like, let's spend an hour and a half or whatnot going through those specific questions, because I think that's where some of the expertise is going to come from as staff. And then if there's other things like how did we get here from a committee standpoint, then maybe setting aside some time to maybe meet with 2 of the members.
And a quorum is 4, I assume.
Correct.
Okay.
Hopefully that helps.
And that's only of the voting members.
Correct.
Okay.
What about social media? Could we have a place where we ask questions of and anybody can answer, or is that considered a meeting?
So just keep in mind that you are members of an appointed body. So a lot of what you do in writing would be considered public record and pursuant to a public records request. So I would not recommend that you...
No WhatsApp groups, that's what I'm hearing.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Because like, for example, if, as the clerk, if I text the mayor and council something, and they start in a group text and they start commenting on that, then it becomes problematic, because then we've got engagement from multiple parties in the same thread, which could be seen as a meeting. So we have to be very cautious about that, which is a lot of times why if I need to tell them something, I text them individually. It may be the same thing, but I don't text them in a group, because we can get into some serious concerns.
And I know, Katie, you blind copy us on things so that we can't reply all.
Same with email, yes.
I'd say from a staff perspective, Katie and I are happy to make ourselves available. If you want to reach out for another conversation, now that you're starting to get a little bit more in tune to the details of things. And
I appreciate that. It's as much a feeling of the dynamics of, this is a team of people who are going to be working together.
Right.
And I get what you're saying, though. I think we could work within those constraints.
So it sounds like it would be beneficial, and I hate to say let's have another meeting, but I really feel like we've at 50% turnover on the committee, and there's a lot of history, and just looking at the route maps and talking through how we arrived at where we did, and answering the questions, and reviewing the draft priorities, reviewing the results of the prioritization study, and just talking through those things, I think would be of huge benefit to the new members. It would also give us an opportunity to get to know your perspectives and where you're coming from as well. So I'll put that out there, that I would be open to, I guess that would be a special meeting for the purpose of kind of orienting the new committee membership and reviewing the service routes, a high-level overview of the history of how we arrived at where we are today, and that kind of thing.
And if I can recommend or offer a suggestion, I think perhaps maybe you two, Nick and Andy, as the leadership of the committee and that have been here for a significant period of time, maybe you all connect and say, hey, here are the top 3 things, right, that we think would be beneficial for people to have foundationally, and then consult with maybe staff from that perspective, and then see if that aligns, or if they have other things, just so there's a consistency on expectation of what's going to be discussed. Because I think you all have seen a lot of projects probably over the last 2 or 3 years, and so we don't want there to be a gap in expectation on, well, I thought we were going to talk about this, or I thought we were going to talk about that, and maybe there's some background information that can be shared ahead of time, so that way you can read through it, you can brainstorm your questions, and really have a more thoughtful discussion. Just a suggestion.
Thank you.
And question for you, Alan. They don't have to set the specific purpose of the special meeting today if they wish to call one, correct? Because Katie and I may say, okay, if you're going to have another meeting, we could fit in a couple more informational updates. You know, there's always a lot happening, so based on the timing.
Yeah, and we're going into super busy time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
My other question would be for the special meeting only, could we meet in a place that we can actually look at each other? Because this is really hard to have a conversation.
This was a topic of discussion at our last meeting where it had to be very formally kind of designated that this is the room where this committee meets.
Well, I think that if I recall correctly, because I listened to that, it actually backed off of the specificity and said it's the town hall as opposed to the room within the town hall.
Where did we arrive on that, Alan? Do you recall?
Correct?
So, yes, it does say town hall because we did that just in case if, you know, if there's some renovations or something that's going on in this particular room, then it can be moved. I think from a sound quality, from a live streaming standpoint, it's a lot better in this room than it is in the third floor. So we have, every month we have our council work sessions on the third floor. When you're rewatching those from a viewer or from a transcriber doing minutes, it's very difficult to see and hear who is speaking. So I would just offer that. I would also offer that this is the location that we've tried to move a lot of the advisory boards to because it is structured for board meetings. We've got renovations going on in Town Hall, and so that limits space that we have available. And currently, the third floor where this board did meet for a few times, there were some virtual meetings and then there were meetings on the third floor, is now being utilized as more of a conference room space, a training space, meeting space. And so while that may sound like excuses, that is certainly we're trying to balance the need of 50 or so staff in this building along with in other buildings trying to find adequate space. And this room is really for this kind of purpose for a board meeting.
So Alan, just all good points. I would just add that, you know, thinking back over the years, you know, when we did the roll up the sleeves work of looking at the maps and really talking through, you know, what the route would look like or routes would look like and where it would make sense for them to go or not to go. This isn't really the type of setting that's conducive to that at all. So I think for meetings like we're discussing now where, you know, I envision they're going to get a lot of benefit out of, you know, standing around the table or sitting around a table and looking at those routes or, you know, looking at them on a large screen is really what's going to be needed to get the level of understanding that we're looking for. So in those types of scenarios, is it okay to use the third floor room?
I think so. I think if we know that in advance, what I would call that is like a working session, right? So you're not really taking any action at that time. You're giving guidance, you're giving recommendations, you're having discussions. That's similar to what council does at their work sessions. They very rarely take action at a work session. They give feedback. They give. It's less formal, so it's more collaborative. And so, to what you're describing, I would say that's more of a work session style format.
And so would that still require a special meeting, or is a work session kind of more of an informal?
So you all adopted your regular meeting calendar, which has I think 4 meeting dates. So the next one is January, then April, then going into the fall of 2025. And so that's considered regular meetings. if one of them needed to change to a work session, really the style wouldn't necessarily change. The meeting date would still be what it was, the time would still be what it was, the location says town hall. So if we moved it to the third floor, that would be noted in the agenda, that it's specifically on the third floor. We'd have signs down in the lobby. I just think you all need to make a distinction on the commitment around work sessions being truly a work session and no business action taken.
Yeah.
Whereas these meetings are where, like, you vote on minutes, you provide recommendations, the letter of support, you actually vote on those kinds of things.
If I may, is it, just stop me if I'm wrong, and let's go ahead and get a date potentially for a working, I'm gonna call it a working orientation for the sake of what we're talking about, a working orientation, and then, you know, we can schedule, you know, as little as an hour or whatever, and just have a powwow about the kind of maybe the expectations of what we're trying to do here. I don't want to say expectations, because that sounds very rigid and too formal for what you're trying to avoid, Alan. So really just an orientation of how we got to where we are. An overview is fine.
So I think
we can let their questions inform, you know, what we're going to put on that agenda for that day. Like if we set the date and, you know, if we set aside an hour, 2 hours, whatever, and then have them send us their questions, concerns, things they want to know about, we can structure a discussion around that.
So I'll make a suggestion. I think what might be a good path is, you know, again, chair and vice chair kind of brainstorming together what you feel like would be beneficial. Okay, setting up a meeting with Shannon and Katie, kind of talk through that.
Okay.
Then having some staff meetings with either you all in attendance, or so that we don't have 4, with the new members as well, so that they can ask their questions. And then if more things evolve from those conversations, then I think schedule a special meeting for everyone to be there.
If I could make a suggestion, I really appreciate you're trying to guide us to get to a place where we want to get to, but then also to follow the rules, which we all want to do. I don't want to put additional burden on the staff, which are already trying to get things done. I don't know that multiple meetings are really going to achieve what we're trying to do, rather than us all getting in a room and if whatever we need to do to comply with the rules, to have an agenda for a specially called meeting for the purpose of orienting, for existing committee members to orient new committee members. I would prefer to do it that way. Otherwise, I'd prefer to just, you know, I'll meet with 2 members and somebody else can meet with 2 members to accomplish the same. I don't want to put, I just think having us all in a room accomplishes what we're trying to do versus multiple meetings with a couple of staff members and a couple of committee members. I just want to really draw out what's your experience been? What have some of the frustrations been? Where do you feel like you've been able to make the most impact? What are some things that, you know, if I bring it up, you're going to say, oh God, please don't go there, right? I mean, there are, half of us are new, and there's just so much experience that you all have. So if you can help us get there, Alan, I'd really appreciate it. And I think I hear 2 members kind of feeling like that would be helpful, but what do the others think?
Definitely would be helpful. Absolutely. How we work it out is another question, I guess.
Yeah, and I think that sometimes the group setting does spark other conversations and other questions that help you learn. So I'm not trying to avoid the group setting. What I want to make sure that we're productive when we do have that special meeting is that when we say provide orientation to new members, that we're very targeted on what the expectation is. So one person may think this plan is higher priority. One may want to dive into the route, how we got there, and that conversation may look different. And so from a planning standpoint and a time management standpoint, we need to be clear on what it is that we're looking to cover during that time period. So that's the only thing I would offer, because if you say we're going to provide orientation, we're going to do an hour, hour and a half, then I'm assuming, Shannon, Katie, speak up, if, you know, they can kind of pull together the priority items, but then there may be other things that you want to hear about or discuss. So I just think we need to clarify expectations in it.
Yeah. So I think I understand what you're looking for. I think it sounds very valuable. I think, you know, per Alan's suggestion, Katie and I could work with the chair and vice chair on how to craft the agenda to accomplish those goals. But Nick, you suggested that we kind of try to identify a date with the group while they're here, and I'm comfortable with that, just because it's hard to coordinate outside of this setting if you did want to get your calendars out. And I'd just kind of throw out there, because I'm looking at the third floor calendar as well, and thinking about the timing between now and our next meeting. I think the evening or late afternoon of November 18th is a possibility, and trying to avoid Thanksgiving as well. And we appear to have meeting space at that time, or December 3rd.
You said November 18th.
Yep, and Katie, I'm not looking at your calendar, but I could try to pull that up too.
Are those Wednesdays?
No.
No.
Monday.
One's a Monday and one's a Tuesday.
Monday and Tuesday. Monday the 18th.
The Tuesday is town council meeting, isn't it? No? Okay.
10th.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
I think the sooner the better.
I agree, 100%.
I'm okay. I'm clear on the 18th.
I am too.
I'm good.
Anyone else have a conflict?
I don't have my calendar, so.
Would it be afternoon?
I'm sorry?
Would it be afternoon?
Same time?
Probably late afternoon.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, Shannon, is that afternoon?
Yeah, afternoon. Shannon?
Sorry, trying to get Katie's calendar to show up too.
There's a art committee meeting here, so do you have to be in attendance, Alan, or no? There's an art committee meeting here. Do you have to be in attendance? Okay.
But yes.
All right.
Yeah, so looks like your work schedule's free also.
Yeah, I didn't think I had anything that day.
November 18th.
We do 4 o'clock.
I'm good with that.
Set aside 4 to 5:30 with the goal of maybe not using the whole hour and a half.
So,
Yeah.
Okay with everybody?
An hour is fine.
Okay, 3 a.m. Okay.
And
Okay, so November 18th, 4 to 5:30 is the time, and we will work in advance on an agenda so that it can be properly noticed. And
I'll shoot an email to Nick and you two. We'll get the conversation started, and then Katie, I don't think we have. I guess we have to send emails to the committee through
To the staff.
through you. Okay.
So if we have questions, those other than chair and vice chair that we would like to have part of that discussion, we can shoot
Yeah,
them
you
over
can
to you.
email me individually.
Okay.
Because we will also work with Alan to advertise the special meeting agenda.
Okay. Thank you.
And just for clarity, it is still a public meeting. It's still recorded and broadcast. Okay.
So I think depending on like what you said about, you know, going to a different station, looking at maps, standing up, kind of looking around, those are still options for this working session. Just be mindful that it's recorded, live streamed,
Yep.
open to the public.
It's all on the record.
We'll let you know where the camera is, so don't,
Moon it.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. All right, I don't have any other additional business. Does anyone else have any other business they want the committee to discuss? All right, I suppose we are adjourned.
Yep.
Bang us out.
Thank you.